Welcome back to the Boise State Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Leah Woodward, and I would like to introduce you to my next guest, who are students at Boise State University. We have Jeremy Baxter, Danielle Dunbar, and Sharon Gilchrist. And these are students who reached out to me because they have a proposal that they wanted to pitch to our listening audience. Let's get right into it.
Hey, thanks, Leah, for having us here today. We are excited to share with you our proposal, which is to help improve class selection for students by making course evaluations public. To give you a little bit of background, we are in something called the LEAD Certificate Program. In this program, we examine different forms of leadership and how it affects our life, and we can help improve things around us by incorporating leadership principles.
Well, thank you, Danielle, for giving us some background on your program. So your proposal is to make course evaluations public. So why don't you kind of explain in your own, some of your own personal experiences that led you to be discussing this proposal today? Jeremy, did you want to start?
And my personal choice to pursue this initiative is to find a course and instruction method that best lines up with my current situations. As a non-traditional student that has many things going on, from running a farm and a small construction business, as well as 4 young kids under the age of 11, my wife and I have to juggle every available minute to keep our family going in a daily tasks, as well as need to finish our education. Being able to see class reviews and responses from students and instructors, I feel could help me better choose the course that would fit our schedules or limit the number of courses taken from previous students' reviews that are in similar situations as myself. In an article titled "Leverage Feedback Experience in Online Learning" by Aaron Crisp, those questions resonated with our idea. What if real-time data could provide proactive insight into students' experience? What if mentors and leaders could monitor experiences and intervene to remedy negative learning situations?
Yeah, I can definitely sympathize with that. I work full-time and I have kids, so it's hard trying to figure out which class best align to the rest of my life. Danielle, what led you to be involved in this proposal?
So the reason that I personally got involved in this proposal was because it is something that affects everyone's lives, no matter what your situation looks like. For myself personally, it's all about having the flexibility to work full-time while also being able to be enrolled full-time and feel like I can succeed. I'm someone who used to only be able to take classes face-to-face, or else I would disengage and fall behind. Once COVID hit and everything went remote, I was no longer able to meet professors beforehand or talk to peers in person about their experiences with classes that they had taken and I would be taking the same. Having a reliable source that I can turn to before picking my classes and seeing what other people in similar situations have to say would be a huge benefit for myself. I also know that with everything being remote, and even though some is still in person, faculty members also struggle with getting that feedback about their classes that they may have been able to get while we were in person.
Yeah, great. You and Jeremy have different situations, but you both have an interest in being able to access more of these resources about class reviews. So that's really interesting to me. Sharon, why don't you tell me your experience? Why do you support this proposal?
Sure. So students' schedules change every month, and not just our schedules and our academics, but we have scheduling life adjustments that we have to make all the time to find a balance in our lives. Many students are working while attending school. Some work full-time while trying to balance school, work, and personal and family life. Having an additional peer resource regarding a student's perspective on the course content, the class formatting, such as online or in person, and then the length of the class would help students be more successful. I want to make sure that I'm selecting the best courses for my academic plans and that they fit into my schedules in order to be successful. Being able to access these peer reviews would give us relatable insight to course selections. And this is really actually how we came up with this project. Is we were talking in our team meetings about our classes and our crazy schedules that we have to accommodate. So currently it's about chatting with your friends and classmates with what classes they took and which ones to avoid and which ones were hard during the summer. And we thought this is a great proposal, that this is a needed benefit that all students and faculty could benefit from.
Okay, great. Yeah, I love to see students getting involved in improving their experience with their education. So Danielle, why don't you give me a little bit of an overview about what you're asking Boise State to do here? Are you asking for all of course evaluations to be made public, or is this geared maybe towards more specific information?
Yeah, that's a good question, Leah. So basically, our proposal is to add additional questions to the course evaluations that will then be made public for students to see when selecting their classes. These questions will be geared towards identifying life situations that help and hinder students from succeeding in the different classes offered at Boise State University. So the purpose of making this information available to students is so that it allows students to greater insight into others' experiences with a class. By enabling this type of visible feedback, students will gain a valuable perspective into what their peers have to say about courses they have taken, which enables them to make better choices in their academic planning. Most importantly, this proposal is focused on both students and instructors with the purpose of creating a transparent model of education that allows students to make more informed decisions.
Wow, Danielle, this sounds like a really great idea, and I'm actually kind of surprised that this isn't something that is already available to students. So help me understand why picking a class can be hard for students. In our leadership discussions, I see a lot of proposals implemented as a result of change occurring in the community. So I'm kind of assuming that there is something that has happened recently that has made picking classes difficult. Have students always struggled with picking classes that worked for them? Or has there been some type of new situational challenge?
So I'm sure, as you know, everything's been crazy the past few years. So once the pandemic hit, Boise State responded by offering more online and hybrid classes. As you know, a big part of leadership theory revolves around the idea of helping people through changes. Peter Northouse, in his book, Leadership, Theory and Practice, notes that leaders must be willing to change their style to meet different requirements of the situation. Boise State leaders implemented situational leadership to pivot classes that were conducive to the pandemic. As the situation continues to evolve, our leadership needs to continue to evolve and adapt. So a quick example of that is UF 200 has 33 separate classes to choose from now, whereas before it was only about 3/4 of that size. Not only are more class options available, but there are more ways to take the class, such as online, in-person, and hybrid. Although this is a huge advancement and great opportunity for many students to enjoy more classes how they want, it has opened up many complications when trying to figure out what class format is right for you. As many of us thought the classes being held online away from campus was just a temporary, it has become the new way of completing college for many students. With this happening, it is hard for students to feel prepared before taking classes without feeling like they're going into it blindsided. By having a place where students can go and fill out a survey for every class they take and feel like their voice is not only being heard, but they have access to the results so they can compare with classmates. This will also be very beneficial for faculty since they don't receive the consistent feedback now that classes are all over the place.
I think it's a really great proposal. So how does this tie into your leadership certificate program? Because I'd like to hear more about this specifically. Sharon, can you kind of explain to me how your program led you guys to think about advocating for this idea?
Yeah, so we're studying adaptive leadership, and that focuses on the adaptation of people to respond to changes in their environments. This leadership concept helps leaders prepare and encourage people to adapt to change. Adaptive leadership focuses more on followers and is student-centered. So teaching is a great example of adaptive leadership by faculty. Teachers are encouraging students to work through and with change, and teachers are adapting to student needs and response. By providing students with additional resources for their academic planning, it assists students to adapt and succeed in an ever-changing environment. In the Harvard Business Review article states that leaders need to place the work where it belongs. And this allows students to take ownership of the data and what is needed to make more informed decisions regarding their education. So while learning about adaptive leadership, we could determine technical challenges can be clearly defined and solutions may be implemented to provide solutions. We can survey and create analytical data that can be filtered as additional resources for students. Adaptive challenges require the institution, the faculty, and students to all implement these changes that may not necessarily be clear-cut or easily definable. So there may be resistance from multiple stakeholders. Our project is also relevant to situational leadership as it demands leaders to match their style of leadership to the followers and their skill sets.
Mhm.
Student environments and circumstances all change over time. Teachers must be responsive to the changes that students experience and adjust accordingly. So effective teachers are those that can recognize and adapt their own style to meet the needs of their students.
So this is very interesting, and I can see how your team is proposing encompasses both of these challenges, the adaptive and the technical challenges. But Jeremy, can you kind of talk a little bit more about the technical challenges specifically? As a student myself, I am already asked to participate in completing surveys of different courses. Will Boise State have to take on a large challenge here to implement this idea?
Yeah, BSU solicits course evaluations for every class already. What we're asking for is target information to be made public. Information is geared towards helping students filter information so they can make the best decision about which classes to take. With added pertinent questions and the current questions asked, future students make a better choice on which class would best fit their lifestyle. This would allow better class participation, providing more engaged students and better instructor-led correlation. In another article, the UNSW plan to publicize course evaluation data raises alarm bells over surveillance. It was written by Claire Ovalin and Luz Velez. Feedback should be expressed through open and direct dialogue between students and staff. I think student feedback is so valuable. I learned a lot from teaching. I learned a lot from my students. I believe making reviews public will create better feedback as students will see their voices heard.
Thanks, Jeremy. So in an article about adaptive leadership, I read from the HBR, and it was called A Survival Guide for Leaders. And it discusses some behaviors when implementing change. One is get on the balcony. To do this, we will host Zoom meetings to get feedback from both students and faculty and hear their experiences. The HBR article also talks about courting the uncommitted. And here we have professors to attend the meeting to understand the students' perspectives as well. Cooking the conflict, which is a behavior in adaptive leadership that encourages a bit of stress, but not too much, so that people can work through situations. Here, the teachers can express concerns with our proposal, and we can address them and guarantee that these evaluations are not used for performance evaluations. Place the work where it belongs. Here is our goal to allow students to take ownership of the data and what is needed to be on the survey analytics. So this data used will be filtered out of any personal information. Data is validated based on signing in to the PeopleSoft or the Boise State system for survey questions. So we're not getting any anonymous unrequested surveys, and then using filtered options that make it applicable for students to define which analytics they're seeking. We would not be rating professor performance, but would rather other than data that students would find very helpful in making class enrollment decisions.
Okay, let's talk about some of these questions that you guys are looking to add to the survey and what you're wanting to be able to do, because according to Boise State, questions have to be submitted to the Office of the Provost in advance, and then these questions may be included in the next school year's evaluations at the end of the course. So tell me what kind of questions you were thinking you'd like to have added.
Yeah. So a couple of questions that we're hoping to get added is, what is your major? That's just a general one to get involved and understand where everyone's coming from. Did you have full-time family or work obligations outside of taking the class? This is a really big one, especially because this covers everyone, all the categories, because as we figured out in our group that we all come from very different backgrounds.
Yeah. So let me just interject right there, because I can totally see that particular question being something that I would want to use myself. Yes, this is great.
Definitely. And then a couple other ones was, did you find the pace of the class difficult to keep up with? Was this class required for your program of study? And was it applicable towards your education goals? Sharon, do you have a couple other ones?
Yeah, so all of those are really great questions, but we know that students want to know more information. So other questions that we added to the survey are, what format was your class presented in? Did you have all three options to actually choose from? And then did you have options in terms of course length? Our classes are 15-week, 10-week, 7-week sessions, 5-week sessions. So there's variables in the length. And then did your instructor provide answers to any questions or concerns in a timely manner? So was the communication working for you in this format as well? And then what was the course description, and was it an accurate representation of the class, or were you blindsided and just didn't know what you were getting into?
Yeah.
Jeremy, did you have some questions that you wanted added?
Yeah, were assignments and material presented in a convenient to use math format? Personally found myself having to learn the new formats each class and find out where all the information is. The
Mhm.
first couple of weeks of class is spent trying to learn the class, not the material.
Yes, yes.
Were assignments, due dates easily to follow and clearly communicated? Falls in a similar category. And was the course information engaging or overwhelming? That'd definitely tell me what class I would want to be involved in, or where I'd want to go as I'm seeking my degree. We all figured a very important one was, would you pick the same class in the same format again, to help us gauge from other students information? Hey, was this a good class format for them, and would it be for us?
Okay, yeah, this sounds like students will then be able to pull up this information online and sort through so they can figure out which class would work best for them. And how I kind of see myself using this information is to sort by degree. So for example, I'm in the applied science program, so I might pull up the information that you guys are asking to be made public. And once it's public, I can pull that up, find the BAS program, filter down to a specific class. And then once I find that class, I can see how other people experience the 7-week class, the online class, the hybrid class, that type of thing, and pick which one would be best for me based off of my own personal experiences. So I'm a mom. I have a hard time juggling everything too. Data here can really go a long way when you don't actually have other students that you can talk about. But I imagine that making this information can be a little bit disconcerting for professors. How does this help? How do you guys kind of plan on dealing with that kind of thing, Jeremy?
One of the key components of leadership is to regulate stress. One way to help professors feel more comfortable with this change is by regulating distress, which is one of the adaptive leadership behaviors that Northhouse discusses. By regulating distress caused by inaccurate assumptions of what will happen from posting surveys, Boise State can help professors and students implement this change. There was a university in Sydney, Australia that just implemented this same concept that we're proposing. The way the vice chancellor of academics handled the faculty concerns was to express it wasn't an evaluation of professors. He said in a student paper, "We deliberately called the student surveys my experience surveys to indicate those were surveys about an experience, not about teaching quality, effectiveness, or learning."
So what is it for the professors then? If these reviews are published, right? And let's say there are people who really do not do well in a 7-week class, and I pull it up and I see it's not really, like you're saying, a review on the professor, but the review looks skewed like it's negative. Does that mean that the 7-week class is at risk of being cut?
No, actually, it would be good for the professor. If students are signing up for a 7-week class and struggling with the pace, that means they are performing poorly in a class. That grade also reflects on the professor. However, the students who can make informed decisions will not sign up for this class, meaning the overall performance of the class will likely improve. Those who sign up for the 7-week class do so knowing that their life situation is one that they can benefit successfully from that pace. I believe we can learn a lot from the University of New South Wales, also known as UNSW Sydney, to create better online courses for staff and students alike.
Well, we are just about out of time. Is there anything that you guys would like to say to our audience before we close?
I think speaking on all of our behalves, we just want to have it known that this is a positive thing and not a negative thing, and that we want it to benefit students and faculty members. So all around we can succeed and see that change at Boise State. But we want to say thank you for having us here today, Leah, to talk about our proposal, and hopefully it gets in the works.
Right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for pitching your proposal today.
Thank you.
You know,